My name is Emily Cardona, and I worked as a volunteer archivist at St. Margaret's Parish in Rome. I'll never forget what happened to me on the afternoon of March 14th, 2024. It changed my life forever. Everything started like a normal day. I was filing donation records, answering calls, just helping wherever I was needed. The sun was shining through the old church windows, casting soft gold patterns across the dusty floor. I remember thinking how peaceful everything felt right before my whole world turned upside down. I had always heard stories about people having visions or strange experiences after someone important passed away, but I never thought I'd experience anything like that myself. When news broke that Pope Francis had died, there was a strange heaviness in the air, not just grief, but something deeper. Before the media even confirmed anything, letters started flooding into our parish from around the world. People said they had seen terrifying visions during near-death experiences, visions where Pope Francis wasn't in heaven, but trapped somewhere far more terrifying. At first, we thought maybe it was fear or grief playing tricks on people's minds. But then a letter arrived that changed everything. It came from a woman inside the church itself. Her name was Lucia, a missionary who had lived quietly among the nuns and clergy for years without drawing attention to herself. She wrote about her own death, how she was taken beyond this world and shown horrifying things she could never have imagined. She didn't speak in riddles or grand prophecies. Her words were simple, but the fear and sorrow in them were real. She claimed she saw Pope Francis suffering, not resting peacefully as we had all expected. I couldn't get her letter out of my head after I read it. And just a few days later, in that same quiet parish office where I spent so many afternoons, it happened to me. One minute, I was standing by the filing cabinet, reaching for a folder. The next, it felt like the entire room tilted. A coldness flooded my body, and my heart started hammering so hard I thought it would burst. I tried to call for help, but no words came out. Then, all at once, everything went black. The darkness wasn't empty like I thought it would be. It was thick, heavy, almost alive. It felt like I was sinking into something deeper and deeper, until even the idea of light seemed like a distant memory. But just as fear started to take over, a soft glow appeared ahead of me. It was gentle at first, like the first star at night, but it grew until it surrounded me completely. Standing in the center of it was a figure so bright and beautiful that it made me want to fall to my knees. I knew right away it was an angel, but not the way you see in paintings. This being wasn't made of soft feathers or golden harps. It was made of pure, living light. There was power in its presence, a strength that didn't need words to be understood. The angel looked at me, and even though it didn't speak, I somehow knew it was asking me to trust it. Without thinking, I reached out my hand, and the moment our fingers touched, we started moving. It didn't feel like walking or flying. It felt like being pulled through layers of reality, faster than anything I could explain. We passed through places so beautiful they made my heart ache, fields of endless flowers, skies that sang with colors I'd never seen before. I thought maybe I was going to heaven, maybe this was what it was all about. But just as I started to feel peace settle over me, the light began to change. It dimmed, slowly at first, like a sunset slipping away. The colors faded, the air grew colder, and that feeling of perfect safety began to slip from my fingers. I looked at the angel, hoping for reassurance, but it said nothing. We were still moving, but now the path ahead of us was dark, and the beauty I had seen before was gone. I had no idea where we were going, but deep down, something inside me whispered that I wasn't ready for what was coming next. The further we went, the heavier the air became, pressing down on me like an invisible weight. I started to hear things faint at first, like echoes drifting through a canyon. But as we moved deeper, the sounds grew louder. Cries, screams, wailing so raw and desperate that it made my heart pound in my chest. A terrible smell filled the air, something like burning metal and rotting earth, thick and choking. Every part of me wanted to turn back, but the angel kept leading me forward, its light growing dimmer with every step. When we finally stopped, I realized we were standing at the edge of a massive chasm. It stretched out endlessly in all directions, a pit so deep and black that no bottom could be seen. Rivers of fire twisted through the darkness like veins under cracked skin, and countless souls wandered aimlessly, their faces twisted in agony. It was then I understood. This wasn't a nightmare or some warning. I was standing at the very gates of hell. Fear gripped me so tightly I could barely breathe. As I stared into that endless darkness, a strange object began to rise from the pit. It was a mirror, but not like anything I had ever seen. It was massive, bigger than a house, and framed in a burning, living fire that seemed to hiss and whisper with every flicker. The surface of the mirror wasn't smooth. It rippled like water disturbed by some unseen force. I didn't want to look into it, but something stronger than me forced my eyes upward. I didn't just see reflections. I saw truths. At first, faces appeared one by one: priests, bishops, men I recognized from photos and ceremonies. Their beautiful robes and golden crosses burned away as the mirror exposed who they really were underneath. Some were greedy, some cruel, some guilty of sins so dark my mind could barely hold on to what I was seeing. It wasn't just about mistakes or failures. It was about deep betrayals, covered by holy garments, hidden behind altars. My stomach twisted, and I begged God to let me look away, but the mirror held me fast. Then, through the shifting faces, one figure began to rise clearer than the rest. My breath caught in my throat when I saw who it was. It was Pope Francis. But he wasn't dressed in white like the pictures we all knew. His robes were torn, blackened by ash, and his face was twisted in a grief so deep it made me want to weep. He was chained to a crumbling altar, and around him, the fire from the mirror licked at his feet, never quite touching him, but keeping him trapped in endless agony. He wasn't sitting on a throne of honor. He was bound by regret, weighed down by sins too heavy to bear. I could feel his sorrow as if it were my own. It poured out of the mirror like waves, crashing into me again and again. I saw flashes of choices made in secret, compromises that led many astray, moments when truth was watered down to please the world. He wasn't crying out for attention or pity. He was crying out for mercy that could no longer reach him. His voice, though silent, echoed inside me, regret, regret, regret. I couldn't understand how someone who had carried such a title could end up here, but deep down, I knew God's judgment sees what no human eyes can. The mirror didn't lie. It showed the heart, the soul, the truth that can't be hidden behind titles or holy garments. And as I watched Pope Francis struggle against those chains, the full weight of it hit me. No one is above accountability. No one is beyond the eyes of God. I wanted to look away, to close my eyes and pretend I hadn't seen it. But something kept my gaze locked on his suffering, almost like God was saying, "Learn from this. Remember this. The pain I felt wasn't just for him, but for every soul that had been misled along the way. Before I could even gather my thoughts, the atmosphere shifted again, darker than before. The fire around the mirror roared higher, and from the shadows, a new figure began to emerge. I felt the temperature drop, colder than ice, and every instinct in my body screamed to run. But my feet were frozen in place. I knew without anyone telling me something far worse was about to appear. Out of the thick darkness stepped a being more terrifying than anything I had ever imagined. It wasn't a red demon with horns like the cartoons show. No, this creature was beautiful, horrifyingly beautiful, like a king draped in shimmering darkness. His eyes locked onto mine, and in them, I saw endless hatred, endless pride. I knew immediately who it was. It was Satan. He didn't rush at me or try to scare me with roars or violence. Instead, he walked slowly, confidently, like he owned everything around him. His smile was chilling, more cruel than anything words could ever describe. As he stood in front of me, I felt every failure, every doubt, every weakness inside me rise up like a flood. It was as if he could see right through me, into the parts of my soul I didn't even want to admit were there. His voice, when he spoke, was soft, almost kind, but every word dripped with poison. "You see," he said, motioning toward the mirror where Pope Francis still struggled. "Even your greatest shepherds belong to me. What hope do you have?" His words sank into me like knives, and for a moment, I felt completely lost, like nothing I believed in could save me. The despair was so thick, it wrapped around my mind like chains, dragging me down. I could feel my strength slipping away, my hope dissolving into the darkness. But somehow, deep inside, a tiny flame refused to go out. I don't even know how, but through my shaking lips, I started whispering the name of Jesus. At first it was weak, barely a breath. But the more I said his name, the stronger my voice grew. "Jesus," I cried out. "Jesus, help me." Instantly, Satan's face twisted into a snarl, and he backed away, his beauty shriveling like paper in fire. The darkness around him shuddered, and the chains of despair around my heart snapped like brittle twigs. The angel who had brought me there stepped forward again, and as it did, the heavy darkness began to pull back like a retreating tide. I stood there, shaking, tears running down my face, but somehow still standing. The angel didn't say anything, but in its presence, I felt peace starting to return, wrapping around my broken spirit like a warm blanket. We began moving again, away from the mirror, away from the pit of sorrow and fire. I didn't know where we were going, but every step felt lighter, like I was being carried out of a nightmare. As we traveled, I saw flashes of what looked like the future, glimpses of churches filled with people, but the light inside them was dimmer than it should have been. I saw leaders who spoke smooth words, but whose hearts were far from God. I saw people, desperate for truth, being fed watered-down lies that led them farther and farther from salvation. It wasn't chaos or open rebellion that was destroying them. It was compromise, slow and quiet like poison dropped into a cup. My heart broke as I watched, realizing that the greatest danger wasn't the evil we could see, it was the evil hiding behind smiles and sweet promises. I wanted to ask the angel what could be done, how we could fix it, how we could stop it. But again, no words were needed. Deep in my spirit, I understood. The only hope was for people to cling to the real truth, no matter how unpopular it became. To read the word for themselves. to pray without ceasing, to stand strong even when it felt like the whole world was going the other way. The future wasn't hopeless, but it would not be easy. Finally, after what felt like a lifetime, we stopped. In front of me stood a figure so full of power and love that my knees buckled beneath me. It was Jesus. There are no words to describe standing before him. His eyes were like fire and oceans at the same time, filled with a love so deep it hurt, and a holiness so pure I felt every flaw inside me exposed. I couldn't even lift my head to look at him fully. All I could do was fall to my knees and weep. Every mistake I had ever made, every selfish thought, every hidden sin I tried to pretend wasn't there, it all came rushing to the surface under his gaze. But instead of crushing me with judgment, his presence wrapped around me with a love so real, so overwhelming, that it broke me even more. I realized in that moment that Jesus didn't want to condemn me, he wanted to heal me. But he wouldn't ignore the truth either. Without speaking, he showed me pieces of my own life, like flashes of light in the air around us. Moments when I had chosen fear over faith. Moments when I had hidden my light instead of letting it shine. And yet, even as my heart shattered with the weight of my failures, I could feel his mercy flooding into all the broken places. It was a love that didn't pretend I was perfect. It was a love that saw everything and still chose me. I knew then that I was standing before the only one who could truly save a soul. Jesus looked at me, and I felt his voice inside my spirit. "Your time is not finished," he said. "You must return. You must tell them what you have seen." The weight of that command settled over me like a mantle, heavy but holy. I didn't want to leave his presence. Every part of me wanted to stay there forever. But I knew I had to obey. If even one soul could be woken up, if even one heart could turn back to him, it would be worth it. Before I could say anything more, the light around me grew so bright it felt like I was being pulled apart. There was a rushing sound, like a mighty wind, and then, with a violent gasp, I was back. I opened my eyes to the ceiling of St. Margaret's Parish, a nurse and two priests standing over me, their faces pale with shock. I was alive, but nothing about me was the same. I had been shown things no human mind should ever see, and I knew I could never stay silent about them. Since that day, not a moment has gone by where I haven't thought about what I witnessed. Every time I close my eyes, I can still see the mirror, the chains, the sorrow carved into the faces of those who had once been trusted with so much. I can still hear the voice of Satan, whispering lies meant to destroy any hope I had left. But more importantly, I can still feel the power of Jesus, stronger than any darkness, calling me to stand in the truth no matter how hard it gets. I knew that if I stayed silent, I would be part of the problem, and I refused to let fear win. That's why I'm sharing my story with you now. Not because I want attention, and not because I have all the answers. I'm just a broken person who was given a glimpse into what most people will never see until it's too late. And if telling my story wakes up even one soul, if it causes even one heart to turn back to the God who loves them more than they can understand, then every tear, every moment of fear, every broken piece will have been worth it. We are living in a time where deception is everywhere, even in places we thought were untouchable. If you're watching this right now, I want you to know it's not by accident. God is calling you to open your eyes, to seek Him with your whole heart, not just through leaders or traditions, but through a personal relationship that cannot be shaken. Please don't wait until it's too late. Read the Word for yourself. Pray like your life depends on it, because it does. and hold on to Jesus with everything you have, no matter what the world says. If this message touched you in any way, I ask you to please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear the truth, and subscribe to this channel for more testimonies just like this. Together, let's wake up hearts, spread the truth, and stand strong for the kingdom of God. Thank you for listening to my story. May God bless you and keep you until the very end.